The space station floated in silence, cold metal turning slowly against the endless black sky. Traders came and went. Mercenaries argued in smoky bars. Soldiers sharpened their weapons and spoke of the next battle. The air was thick with the smell of fuel and fear. Everyone was waiting for the new crew member, and they expected a fighter, a killer, a warrior to join them, not what they received. From the docking bay walked a single human, tall but quiet, clothes simple. Eyes sharp but calm, he carried no gun, no blade, no armor, only a small travel bag that looked almost empty. The crowd stared, confused, whispering, was this a mistake? Was this the wrong man? Was this some kind of joke? Nobody could tell. The alien crew gathered. Their captain stood in front, tall scales shining, his voice rough. Name your skill, human. What can you do for my ship? For my war. The silence hung heavy. Many expected a bold speech. Others waited for some hidden weapon to appear. But the man only gave a small shrug, his answer soft, almost too soft for such a place. I don't talk much, sir. But I can cook. Laughter broke out, sharp and cruel. Mercenaries slammed their fists on metal crates. Some even bent over in laughter. A cook, they said. A cook in a war fleet. What good was that? What madness brought him here? Yet the human's face did not change. No anger, no fear, just a calm stare, as if the joke was not on him but on them. The captain's eyes narrowed, suspicion mixed with curiosity. He studied the man, his heartbeat steady. No shame, no panic. Something was different about this human, something that did not match his simple words. Still the captain spat. We have soldiers, we have killers. What use is a cook when enemies fire plasma at your skull? But the human only shrugged again, saying nothing more. A pause stretched in the air, tension crawling across the hangar. Then one of the crew shouted, Let him prove it, Captain. Let him show us if his food is better than his words. The laughter grew again, but the idea was planted and the captain, though doubtful, raised one clawed hand and silenced the noise. Fine, human, you have one chance. Cook for us tonight if your food is worthless. We throw you out the airlock, no questions asked. The crew cheered at the cruel promise, their eyes gleaming with mockery, but the human simply nodded, no sign of fear, no sign of regret, only calm. That night in the lower deck kitchen, the human worked, his hands steady, his eyes focused. He moved with quiet confidence, knives flashing, pans sizzling, strange smells rising, rich and warm, spreading through the cold metal halls. Aliens passing by stopped. Their noses twitched, their stomachs growled. Some frowned, confused. Others looked angry that simple food could disturb them like this. The scent carried something beyond hunger, something deeper, something old. In the mess hall, the crew waited with crossed arms, weapons at their sides, expecting disappointment, expecting to laugh again, but when the plates were served, silence fell. First bites were cautious, then faster, then desperate. Eyes widened, jaws dropped, the laughter was gone, replaced by shock, then awe, then an uneasy quiet. Because the food was more than food, it was power, it was memory, it was life itself. The captain chewed slowly, his sharp teeth cutting through the meal, but his expression softened. For the first time in years, his chest felt light. The weight of war eased. His scars itched less, even his mind cleared. He looked at the human with new eyes. Suspicion still there, but mixed with respect. Maybe even fear, because this was no ordinary cook. This was something else. The crew did not speak for a long time, their weapons forgotten. Their eyes on the quiet man who cleaned his tools without pride, without arrogance, as if he had done nothing at all. Finally, the captain leaned forward, his voice low. Where did you learn this? But the human only gave the same small shrug, offering no answer, leaving the question to hang in the air like smoke. Whispers spread, carried from one mercenary to the next, from one soldier to another. Some said the food healed their wounds faster. Others said it gave them strange dreams, powerful visions of battles they had not yet fought. A few swore they could feel their strength doubled. Nobody laughed now, nobody mocked. Instead, they watched the cook with quiet unease, wondering who he truly was and why he had come here. The station lights flickered as if the ship itself sensed the change, the atmosphere heavy with something new. Something dangerous. The human sat alone, sharpening his knives, silent, calm, his words echoing in their minds. I don't talk much, sir, but I can cook. And in that moment, the crew understood one thing, though they would not admit it out loud. They had not hired a cook. They had welcomed a mystery, maybe even a weapon, wrapped in the quiet face of a human who did not talk much, but whose food spoke louder than any war cry. The night ended. But the unease remained. The cook had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, the crew gathered in the mess hall again, some out of hunger, most out of curiosity. Whispers still circled about the strange human, the cook who had silenced a hall full of killers with nothing but a meal. Some wanted more, others wanted answers, and a few wanted him gone. But none dared to laugh now. The captain entered last, his scales shining under the dull lights, his voice low and sharp. One meal proves nothing. Human, today you cook again. Today you show us if last night was chance or skill. His claws tapped against the table. Echoing like drums, the crew leaned forward, waiting, some mocking with smirks, some nervous with tight jaws, all eyes fixed on the cook. The human said nothing, he only nodded, his face calm. His bag of tools at his side, knives, spices, pans, everything simple, everything clean. He moved to the kitchen with no fear, as if he belonged there more than anyone else on the ship. The crew followed him with their eyes, waiting, restless, hungry not only for food but for proof of what he truly was. In the kitchen, the air filled again with heat and sound, the hiss of oil, the crack of knives, the rhythm of chopping, the fire glowing under metal pans. Scents rose once more, stronger this time, sharper, deeper, carrying across the corridors, pulling soldiers from their bunks, dragging mercenaries from the bars. Even the station guards peeked in, their noses twitching, their stomachs growling. The smell was impossible to ignore. The alien crew tried to act unimpressed, tried to hide their interest, but their throats swallowed hard. Their bodies leaned closer, the memory of last night still alive on their tongues. They remembered the way their hearts had calmed, the way their wounds had eased, the way their dreams had burned brighter, and they wondered if it would happen again, or if last night had only been magic by accident. The human cooked in silence. No words, no stories. His hands worked faster now, movements smooth and steady, like a warrior sharpening his blade. Every slice, every stir, every taste test was precise, controlled, nothing wasted, nothing rushed, and yet there was no coldness in him. There was warmth, as if each meal carried something personal, something hidden deep inside. Plates were served, one by one, steam rising, colors bright, the smell filling the hall until even the strongest warrior could not resist. The first bite fell to the captain. His teeth cut through the meal, his eyes narrowed, his jaw worked slow, then stopped. Silence again. Heavy and sharp, all crew members froze, waiting for his verdict, waiting for his roar or his laughter, but none came. Instead, the captain leaned back, eyes dark with something no one could name. He only said, "Eat." The hall came alive. Spoons clattered, claws grabbed, jaws tore. Growls and gasps filled the air. Aliens of all shapes and sizes ate as if they had not eaten in years. Their faces changed, hard eyes softened. Scars seemed to fade, trembling hands stilled. Laughter came. But this time it was not cruel. It was deep, joyful, strange. A laughter that carried relief, as if the food had reached into their bones and reminded them of something long forgotten. One soldier dropped his fork, his eyes wet. "I remember home," he whispered, voice breaking. "I can taste the river air. I can hear my mother's voice." Another mercenary slammed his fist on the table, not in anger but in amazement. "I feel strong, stronger than I have in cycles." A wounded guard lifted his sleeve, staring as a scar faded lighter before his eyes, disbelief twisting his face. "This is not food," he muttered. "This is something else." The human only cleaned his pan, silent, calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. As if this was normal, his face gave nothing away. No pride, no arrogance, no explanation. The crew looked at him now not as a cook but as a mystery, and in mystery grew fear. The captain slammed his clawed hand down, silencing the noise, his voice low but firm. "You are no simple cook, human. Food does not heal. Food does not give visions. Food does not turn killers into children weeping for home." His eyes narrowed like blades. "What are you hiding? What power is this?" But the human only looked up, wiping his knife clean, and said, "Food is strength, sir. Nothing more." No one believed him, but no one dared to push further. The hall was thick with unease, thick with wonder, thick with the feeling that they had let something onto their ship that did not belong, something that could not be controlled. Yet none could deny the taste still on their tongues, the fire still in their veins, the strange peace inside their minds. Later, in the shadows of the mess hall, whispers grew. Some wanted to keep him, to guard him like treasure. Others wanted him gone before his power brought danger. But all agreed on one thing. This human was no ordinary man. This cook carried secrets heavy enough to change battles, maybe even wars, and yet he walked with no fear, no words, only knives and pans. The captain watched him from the far corner, claws tapping slow, suspicion deep in his chest. He did not trust the human, but he could not deny the truth. His crew was stronger, calmer, sharper. After 2 meals than they had been in months of training, he had hired a cook, yes, but maybe he had gained something far more dangerous. Maybe he had gained a weapon that did not fire, did not roar, but whispered quietly in every bite. The second meal was finished. The hall emptied. But the legend of the human cook had just begun, and though the man said little, his food spoke louder than all the guns in the galaxy. The days passed, but the memory of the meals did not fade. The alien crew carried the taste in their mouths, the warmth in their veins, the strange calm in their minds. They trained harder, they slept deeper, they healed faster, all because of the cook who spoke little but cooked much, and though none would say it out loud, they had begun to fear him. The ship was a warship, built for battles, built for blood, yet the strongest weapon on board did not fire plasma, did not roar through cannons. It chopped, stirred, and simmered in silence, and the crew, hardened killers from 100 worlds, felt uneasy at the thought. One night, during patrol, the medic entered the mess hall, his scanners glowing. He placed them near the crew while they ate. His eyes widened as numbers flashed across the screen. Heart rates lower, muscles stronger, cell repair faster, even bone fractures knitting quicker than medicine could manage. He checked again, then again, but the results did not change. The food had changed them. It was impossible. Yet it was true. Whispers grew louder, spreading through the crew like wildfire. The cook heals us, some said. The cook makes us stronger, others whispered. The cook is dangerous, muttered the jealous few. No one laughed anymore, no one mocked. Instead, they watched him in silence, each meal a mystery, each bite a risk and a gift. The captain called a private meeting, claws tapping against the steel table, eyes sharp. This cannot be ignored. Our enemies grow stronger, but this cook changes the fight without lifting a weapon. We must know what he truly is. But when the human was questioned again, he gave the same small shrug. Food is strength, sir. The crew began to test him in secret. One soldier skipped meals for 3 days. His body grew weak, his mind clouded. When he ate again, life rushed back into him like a storm. Another wounded mercenary threw away his medicine and ate only the human's food. Within days, his scars closed, faster than any drug had ever worked. Soon none doubted, none denied, but none understood. One evening the mess hall was quiet. The human cooked as always, his hands steady, his eyes calm, but tonight the captain watched closer. He saw the way the cook touched the spices, the way he measured each cut, the way he added ingredients not from the ship's supply but from small hidden jars he carried himself. Strange powders, rare herbs, glowing faintly in the dim light, nothing like the food of ordinary men. The captain felt the truth like a knife. This was no normal cooking. This was something deeper, something older. The meals spread beyond the crew. Outsiders began to hear rumors. Traders spoke in hushed voices. Pirates whispered at bars. There is a human cook whose food heals wounds, whose meals give strength, whose silence hides power. Some laughed at the stories, but others listened with hungry eyes, already planning to steal him, already plotting to claim his secret. The crew grew protective. Some more loyal than gold, they guarded the mess hall. They watched strangers closely. They whispered about him late at night. Some called him the alchemist, others the healer, but none dared say it to his face. For he was still quiet, still calm, still only saying, "I cook." One night after a small raid, the crew returned bloody and tired. Plasma burns smoking, blades dripping, morale low, death heavy in the air, but the cook was already waiting. Knives ready, pans hot. The smell filled the ship. Pulling them in like a tide, they ate and their pain softened. Their strength returned, their eyes sharpened. Even their grief seemed lighter, and they realized then, without him, they might not survive the wars ahead. The captain sat alone after the meal, claws tapping slow, his thoughts dark. He could change the course of battles, he whispered to himself. He could turn soldiers into legends. He could make my crew unstoppable. But if he falls into enemy hands, he could destroy us. And for the first time, the captain wondered, was the cook a gift or a curse? The human, sitting alone in the shadows, sharpening his knives, said nothing. But in his silence there was weight, a weight the others could feel but not name. He was not a fighter, not a killer, not a warrior. Yet his presence was heavier than any blade, his food more dangerous than any gun. One mercenary whispered to another. "He fights with meals, not weapons," the other replied. "Maybe that makes him the most dangerous of all." And though they said it in quiet voices, they both knew it was true. The hidden strength of the human cook had been revealed, not with guns, not with fire, but with meals that healed, meals that empowered, meals that carried secrets none could explain. And though the crew did not yet understand, they knew this: wars would never be the same again, not with him on board. The warship drifted through dark space, engines humming low, the crew restless, their eyes sharp and their weapons ready. For rumors had reached them of pirates in the sector, hunters who showed no mercy, killers who took no prisoners, the kind of enemy even hardened soldiers feared. The captain stood on the bridge, claws tapping the console, his voice cold. "They will come. I can feel it." The crew tightened their grips on rifles, blades and plasma cannons, but in the corner of the room, the cook stood quietly, no weapon in his hand, only his small bag of knives and herbs, calm as ever, as if battle did not matter to him. When the enemy arrived, it came like fire. Alarms screamed, the ship shook, metal groaned. Red lights bathed the hallways. The pirates were fast, cruel, their ships circling like wolves. Plasma bolts tore through the void. Explosions echoed, fear spread quick, but the cook did not move. He only turned and walked to the kitchen. The crew shouted, "We need fighters, not meals." Another cursed, "He hides while we bleed." But the captain raised one hand, his voice low. Let him be. For deep inside, the captain suspected the truth. This human strength was not in weapons, but in what came from his pans. In the kitchen, the cook worked fast. Knives flashing, pots boiling, flames rising. He moved with the same focus as a warrior sharpening his blade, his breath steady, his hands calm, the air filled with smells that cut through smoke and blood, a strange comfort spreading through the halls even as plasma shook the ship. Meanwhile, the crew fought hard, but the pirates pressed closer. Boarding hooks slammed into the hull, metal tore, doors exploded inward, and raiders poured in, claws flashing, rifles roaring. The halls became rivers of fire and steel. Soldiers fell, mercenaries bled. The ship trembled on the edge of defeat. Then came the call, the captain's voice booming through the intercom. "Mess hall now." The crew staggered back, dragging wounded with them, fighting their way through corridors filled with smoke and screams. They entered the hall broken, gasping, bloodied. Yet what met them was not despair, but the smell of food. Rich and heavy, warm and alive. Plates waited, bowls steaming, meat sizzling, herbs glowing faintly in the dim lights. The cook stood silent, his knives clean, his face calm, and he only said one word: eat. At first they hesitated, disbelief mixing with anger, but hunger and pain pulled them forward. They ate, and as the food touched their tongues, everything changed. Breath steadied, muscles tightened, pain dulled, vision sharpened, fear melted away, hearts beat like war drums, blood roared with fire. They rose from the tables not as broken soldiers, but as something else, faster, stronger, sharper than before. The pirates stormed into the hall, roaring, weapons raised, but they met a crew reborn. Blades clashed, rifles fired, the fight turned savage. Yet the crew did not fall this time. They moved like lightning. They struck like storms. Every strike carried power beyond training. Every defense held firm. The pirates faltered, confusion in their eyes, for these were not the same soldiers they had wounded minutes ago. The captain fought at the front, claws tearing through armor, his roar shaking the hall. He felt young again, strong again, unstoppable again, and as he drove his blade through the pirate leader, he looked back once to the cook standing silent by his pans, and he knew then, victory belonged not to weapons, but to meals. The battle raged through the ship, corridors filled with screams and fire, but the crew did not break. They hunted the raiders down, pushed them back, broke their ranks until the last pirate fled into space, ships burning behind them, leaving only silence, wreckage, and the breathless laughter of survivors. When it was done, the crew gathered again in the mess hall, blood still dripping, weapons still smoking, yet their eyes were not on the captain, not on each other but on the cook, quiet, calm, cleaning his knives as if nothing had happened at all, as if the battle was only noise outside his kitchen. One soldier dropped to a seat, voice shaking, "I should be dead." Another lifted his arm, burned minutes ago but now steady, strong. "I feel like fire," a mercenary laughed, not cruel but wild. "We fought like gods." And all eyes turned again to the human, the silent man who had changed defeat into victory with nothing but food. The captain spoke at last, his voice low, heavy with both respect and suspicion. "You are more dangerous than 1,000 guns, human. You are a weapon wrapped in silence." But the cook only gave his small shrug, eyes calm, and said, "I only cook, sir." Yet none believed him, for they had felt the truth in their blood. They had seen it in the battle, and they knew now that this man, this quiet cook, carried strength no one could explain. Strength hidden in meals, strength that could turn battles, maybe even wars. And though they had survived the first fight, whispers began in the shadows. Whispers of enemies who would hear of this victory. Whispers of rivals who would come hunting not for the ship, but for the cook himself. The warship sailed on, scarred but alive, the crew victorious yet uneasy. For they understood one thing clearly now. This was only the first battle, and because of the cook it would not be the last. The warship drifted through the void, scars from the pirate attack still glowing on its hull, yet inside the crew walked with a strange energy, their eyes sharper, their steps quicker, their laughter deeper. They had survived what should have killed them, and every soldier knew the reason. It was not guns, not armor, not the captain's orders, it was the cook. Whispers had already begun to spread, carried by fleeing pirates, carried by traders who had smelled the meals when the ship docked, carried by mercenaries who had seen the wounded heal faster than medicine could explain. The stories grew wild, twisted by fear and greed. "There is a human who cooks miracles," some said. "A man whose food makes soldiers unbreakable," others whispered. And in dark corners of the galaxy, eyes turned toward the ship. On a distant station, a warlord laughed when he heard the tale, his voice booming across the hall. "A cook who heals wounds? Lies, nonsense, drunken gossip." But even as he mocked, he leaned forward, eyes narrowing, for greed burned in him. "If the rumors are true, I will have this cook, and with him I will rule every star." In another sector, rival mercenaries sharpened blades, their leader whispering, "If this human can turn weaklings into warriors, imagine what he could do for us." Their plans began to form, dark and ruthless, to steal the man and chain him to their kitchens. Even the pirates who had fled still whispered in terror. We fought men who should have been dead. Yet they rose like demons, their wounds closed, their eyes burned. It was the food, I swear it was the food. And though many laughed at them, others listened, quiet and hungry for such power. Back on the warship, the crew tried to return to normal, training, guarding, repairing the ship. But nothing was the same. They glanced at the cook with both loyalty and fear. They sat at his tables with both hunger and caution. They whispered about him in the nights, calling him names, the alchemist, the healer, the silent flame. And though he spoke little, though he never explained, the weight of his mystery only grew heavier. One evening, as the crew ate, a mercenary slammed his hand down. "Eyes wide, they will come for him." "Captain, you know it, word spreads faster than light. They will come, and when they do, they will not come for us. They will come for him." The captain said nothing at first, his eyes fixed on the human at the far corner, sharpening his knives in silence. Finally he growled, "Then we will fight not for gold, not for war, but for the cook who keeps us alive." His words drew cheers, but behind the cheers was fear, for they all knew. Fighting over a man was different than fighting for a contract. And once the galaxy smelled blood, the hunt would never stop. The human, hearing their words, did not flinch. He only cleaned his blade, calm as always, but his silence carried weight. A question none dared ask. Did he know this would happen? Had he chosen this path, or was he simply walking through chaos without care? Days later, the first shadow appeared, a spy ship trailing them in the dark, scanners humming, eyes watching. The captain ordered weapons ready, but the ship did not attack. It only followed, patient, waiting, as if measuring the right moment to strike. The crew grew restless, but the cook carried on, stirring his pans, chopping herbs, calm in the storm. Another day, a message reached the bridge, a warning from an ally. "Others know they talk about your human. They call him the miracle cook, they want him. They will come for him." The captain's claws dug into the table, his voice cold, "Let them come." But the crew felt the change. Every meal tasted not only of strength but of danger. Every bite carried the weight of being hunted. And though they grew stronger, though their wounds healed faster, they ate with unease, for they knew each plate was another rumor, each bite another reason for enemies to chase them. The medic approached the captain one night, eyes heavy with worry. This cannot last. He is not just a cook. He is something else, something science cannot explain. The galaxy will not let such power remain free. We must hide him, or we must prepare for endless war. The captain only growled in reply. Then we prepare. In the shadows of the mess hall, the cook sat alone, sharpening his knives, his face calm, his eyes unreadable. The crew watched him but did not approach, for in their hearts they felt the truth. The galaxy was no longer hunting them. It was hunting him, and by standing with him, they had become part of a storm larger than any they had faced. The enemies had taken notice, and the first battle had been only the beginning. What came next would decide not only the fate of the ship, but the fate of the man who did not talk much, the man who only cooked, yet cooked with power enough to shake the stars. The warship sailed through the black, engines burning slow, the scars of battle still healing on its hull. Inside, the crew carried themselves with pride, but also with unease. They were stronger than ever, sharper, faster, alive because of the cook. Yet the whispers of enemies grew louder each day, and whispers have a way of reaching weak hearts. Among the crew was one who could not silence his greed. A young officer, sharp but restless, his eyes always watching the cook, his thoughts always turning toward the rumors of wealth and power. He had heard the voices in the bars, the traders who spoke of paying fortunes for a single secret of the humans' recipes, the warlords who swore they would buy the cook for armies of gold, and the thought burned in him like fire. Why should the captain keep him, when I could trade him for everything I ever wanted? At first, he kept his greed hidden, smiling with the crew, training, eating the meals like everyone else, but in the dark of his bunk, he sent quiet messages through the black channels, whispers to those who hunted the ship. The cook is real, he wrote. I can give him to you. The enemy answered quickly, their promise sharp. Deliver the human, and you will have riches beyond stars, command of your own fleet, freedom from war. Only give him to us. The officer's heart pounded, fear clawing at him, but greed stronger, he told himself. It is not betrayal, it is survival. But betrayal always leaves a mark. The cook, silent as always, moved through the ship with calm eyes. Yet he noticed things others did not. The way the officer's hand shook when he held a spoon, the way his eyes darted toward shadows, the way his breath caught whenever the crew praised the meals. The cook did not speak, but he watched, and his silence was heavier than words. One night, the officer acted. He sent a signal to the waiting raiders, a beacon hidden in the engine codes, short, sharp, impossible to notice unless you knew where to look. Come, he whispered, he will be yours. The next day, the crew gathered in the mess hall. Tired from drills, wounds aching, they waited for the cook, the smell already filling the air. But something was different tonight. The food was richer, heavier, the taste deeper, sharper, almost burning on the tongue, and as they ate, a strange silence fell, not of peace, but of truth. The captain frowned, claws pausing mid-bite, eyes narrowing. What is this meal, human? It feels heavy. The cook only gave his small shrug, his calm reply. It shows truth, sir. The officer's face paled, sweat beading his skin. His hands trembled as he tried to eat, but the food caught in his throat. His breath quickened, his heart raced. The crew turned, staring, confusion turning to suspicion. The captain's eyes locked on him like blades. What have you done? He growled. The officer shook, tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The cook placed his knife down, his eyes calm. He sent a signal. Last night, his voice soft but sharp as steel. They will come soon. The hall erupted in shouts. Soldiers slammed fists on tables. Mercenaries grabbed their weapons. Rage filled the air. Betrayal burned like fire. The captain's roar silenced them all. You would sell us? You would give away the man who keeps us alive. His claws tore through metal as if it were paper. The officer fell to his knees, stammering. I thought riches, safety, but there was no forgiveness. Not on a warship where loyalty was life. The crew dragged him away, his screams echoing through the halls until silence swallowed him, and none spoke of him again. The captain turned to the cook, his eyes heavy. You knew. The cook nodded once, calm as ever. The food shows what words hide, nothing more, nothing less. Outside, the void shifted. Sensors blinked, ships approaching fast, the raiders who had answered the signal, who thought the cook would be theirs. The crew rushed to stations, fear mixing with fury, but this time their hearts were steady, for they had learned a lesson. Betrayal could come from within, yet the cook had seen it, had stopped it with nothing but a meal. The captain stood tall on the bridge, his voice sharp as a blade. Let them come, they think us weak. But tonight we show them what it means to hunt a ship that carries the cook. Cheers erupted, not of joy but of fire, and deep in the mess hall, the cook stirred his pans once more, knives flashing, spices burning, preparing the strength they would need. The betrayal had been revealed. The traitor cast out, yet the danger he invited still approached, and the crew knew this fight would not be like the last. This fight would decide if the cook's legend ended in chains, or burned brighter across the stars. The raiders came like a storm, dozens of ships tearing through the void, plasma cannons flashing, torpedoes screaming, their voices snarling across the comms. Give us the cook, and we will spare your lives. The crew on the warship stood silent at their stations. No one answered, no one begged. Their eyes turned instead toward the mess hall, where a single human worked in calm silence. The cook did not rush. Though alarms blared and the ship shook under fire, his knives moved with steady rhythm, his hands stirred pots with care. The smell of food spread once more through every corridor. Rich and heavy, warm and alive, it carried over the fear. It drowned out the panic. It filled the crew with strength even before the first bite. The captain stood on the bridge, claws gripping the console, his voice sharp. We fight not for gold, not for pride, but for the cook who gives us life. His roar shook the air, and the crew answered with cheers that drowned out the enemy's demands. The raiders boarded, hooks and charges tearing into the hull. Explosions rocking the deck, soldiers poured in, weapons raised. But they met not a tired crew, not a broken crew, but warriors reborn, their bodies strong, their wounds forgotten, their eyes blazing with fire. They fought like storms, fast and furious, blades clashing, plasma roaring, their laughter wild and sharp. The raiders faltered, confusion twisting their faces. They should be weak, one cried. They should be broken, but instead they met fury. And behind that fury was something greater, something none of them understood. In the heart of the battle, the captain struck down foes with claws like steel. Mercenaries moved faster than fire. Wounded guards rose again when they should have fallen. And through it all, the smell of the food lingered, as if each bite had etched power into their blood. At last, the raider flagship appeared, larger than the warship, bristling with guns, its shadow swallowing the stars. The enemy commander's voice thundered across the channels. Human cook, surrender yourself or all of them die. The crew froze for a heartbeat, eyes turning to the cook who stood at the edge of the mess hall. Knives clean, face calm, he looked at them, then at the captain and said softly, Eat, you'll need it. One final meal, one final gift. Bowls passed from hand to hand, steam rising, herbs glowing faintly in the low light. Every soldier, every mercenary, every guard ate. And as the food touched their tongues, fire roared in their veins. Their hearts thundered like drums of war. Their fear vanished. Their strength surged beyond limits. The battle turned into legend that night. The crew launched themselves against a force far larger, yet they fought like gods. The captain led charges through flames. Mercenaries broke steel doors with bare hands. Wounded soldiers rose again and again. The raiders, outnumbering them 3-1, began to fall back in terror. The flagship unleashed its full firepower. But the warship did not break. The crew answered with fury. Engines burning bright, cannons roaring back. And when the dust cleared, the enemy fleet was broken, ships burning, raiders fleeing into the dark, leaving only silence and wreckage behind. The crew stood victorious, bodies bruised but alive, weapons dripping but steady, their voices rising in wild laughter, for they had survived the impossible. They had won a war they should have lost, and all because of the cook who did not fight, who did not boast, who only fed them with silence and strength. After the battle, the galaxy trembled with whispers. Traitors told the tale in every station. Pirates muttered it in fear. Warlords spoke it in hunger. Fear the cook, they said. The human who heals wounds with meals, who turns weak soldiers into unbreakable warriors, who speaks little but whose food speaks louder than any cannon. Some called him the silent flame, others the human alchemist, but most simply said, Fear the cook who does not talk much. The captain, sitting alone in his quarters, thought of all he had seen. The battle survived, the traitor exposed, the enemies defeated, and he whispered to himself, He is no cook. He is something far greater, something the galaxy will never understand. Yet the human, the center of it all, sat in the mess hall, Knives sharp, pans clean, preparing quietly for the next meal, as if nothing had happened, as if he were truly only what he claimed to be, a cook. The crew looked at him with loyalty, with awe, with fear, and they knew one truth. Wars would come, enemies would rise, betrayal would return, but as long as he stood with them, silent and calm, they would never fall, and so the legend grew, carried from star to star, from mouth to mouth, until whole planets spoke his name, not as a warrior, not as a hero, but as the man who said only, "I don't talk much, sir, but I can cook."